Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to do yet another brewery who I have never tried anything from. As I've mentioned before, there's around 400 little craft breweries here in Sweden, and some of these very small breweries can always throw up some very good surprises. For this review today we're going to the Stockholm region, to a little place called Sickla, just to the southeast of the city, and we're going to try my first ever beer from Nacka Bryggeri. So this one is the Sickla New England IPA, coming in at 6.2%, and this was one of the beers released on the 1st of March 2019 through these little local regional releases that we get every month through Systembolaget. They released this along with a Brut IPA from what I remember, but very much looking forward to trying this one. I chose this one out of the two mainly because I thought the malt base and the hop combination sounded very good, so hopefully this is another good beer, and I hope you guys enjoy my take on this one. I'm very curious to try this and see how we go on my first review from this brewery as far as I can remember. There is, I think, I know you get Nacka Bryggeri, and there's another brewery away up in the north of Sweden who has quite a similar name to this from what I remember, but this is the very first time I have actually reviewed something from Nacka Bryggeri. But yeah, looking forward to this, and as I say, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Nacka Bryggeri. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see some more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being constantly added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the Nacka Bryggeri then. So on to my brewery notes. As I mentioned to you earlier, Nacka Bryggeri are based in Sickla, which is near Stockholm, just a little bit to the southeast of the city actually. But the brewery was founded by a group of friends and colleagues who'd worked together at Ericsson, the big electronics company. So this is Vlado Marisic and Holger Ercharty. They became good friends, and then they bought some home brewing equipment together and registered for a brewing course back in 2011. And after doing this course, they really found themselves hooked on the idea of having their own brewery. But they were soon joined by Tor Lindstein, who had worked with them at Ericsson as well. He'd been a consultant working at Ericsson and always found that he'd got on very well working with the other two, so it was only kind of natural that they invited him on board. But they installed a small 500 litre brew kit in their premises, and they sold their first beers in 2015. They produced 30,000 litres in 2016 and 2017, but they are planning to kind of upscale the brewery and produce up to somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 litres in the very near future. So still a very new operation, you know, only releasing their first beers in 2015, and it seems to be that a lot of, you know, over between 2015 and 2018 there's been a hell of a lot. There's been a big boom in the number of craft breweries here in Sweden. I think there's somewhere in the region of 400 little local breweries here at the moment, and these guys are another one popping up in the Stockholm region, which really has a good number of breweries. Now Gothenburg usually is the craft beer city in Sweden. That's where there's so much stuff going on there, but there are some very good breweries popping up in the kind of Stockholm region around Örebro and all of this kind of area. So yeah, hopefully these guys are another one that really kind of rise up there and produce some very good beers. But that's all you really need to know about the Nacka Bryggeri just now. This beer itself is actually named after a local estate that used to be there. It was an estate and mansion on the Sickla Peninsula, and it ended operations in the very late 1890s, the very late 18th century, and the land was actually sold off after this. So this is where this beer takes its name from, and from what I gather they do name a number of their beers actually after local things in this Nacka area just to the southeast of Stockholm. So yeah, interesting this. But let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself. As I mentioned to you, this one is a 6.2% New England IPA. The hops in this one are Magnum, Cascade, Citra and Centennial, and it's got a malt base of paleo malts, wheat and Cara Munich 2. So yeah, interesting there. It does tell you a little bit on the back about this as well. Just pause it. I'll just show you that, and you can pause it if you want a little look. But it tells you a little bit about the estate that I was mentioning there, and basically it says that it's, I think, you know, it talks about the Stora Sickla, which was a big farm, if you like, And it was basically a big farming estate, as I mentioned. It talks about the water levels being 4 metres higher than they are today in this area, which made it a very, very good farmland. But it says, you know, from the 18th century, the industrialisation, you know, took over the area, basically. That's what it's saying on the back here, and it tells you a little bit about the beer as well, saying what hops and malts and things like that it has in it too. So, yeah, nicely presented beer, this one. The artwork on these Nacka beers is very, very kind of similar, actually. It just depends on what one you've got, obviously, and the colour schemes tend to be a little bit different. There you can see the Nacka Bryggeri symbol, and of course a little bit something similar on the bottle cap to this beer as well. But like I said, 6.2% New England IPA, so without further ado, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. Really curious to see what this beer throws up. So yeah, out and into the glass. And for a New England beer, actually, for a New England IPA, the colour is actually quite different. This one looks a little bit more like a West Coast IPA, to be honest with you. But then again, if they put Cara Munich in this one, that's probably what's giving it its slightly darker colour. Cara Munich, I'm guessing they'll have used the Weirmann malt in this one from Bamberg in Germany. And Cara Munich can give you this lovely, quite rich amber colour. And you know, I would say this is actually quite surprising for this beer. You know, the appearance is a lot more akin to a West Coast IPA, to be honest. If I hold this up to the light, it really does look far more along the lines of a West Coast IPA. You've got a solid half finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on this one. The darker colour in this one, as I mentioned, is most likely from the Cara Munich malt, but if I put my finger behind the glass there, you can see this one, in terms of its appearance, it does look far more along the lines of a West Coast IPA or something like that. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But yeah, interesting looking beer, this one, especially when you consider it is a New England IPA. So I'm sure, though, since they've got wheat malts and stuff in there, we will get some of that kind of more bready New England flavour in the actual flavour profile of this beer. But first off, let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. When you open this beer up, you do get some lovely fruity, juicy notes off it straight away. So yeah, with this beer, I'm finding it has a nice kind of lemony sharpness to it. That's the Centennial coming out. And you can smell some of the nice grapefruity notes. It's quite a juicy grapefruit. Cascade always gives you this lovely kind of quite juicy grapefruity note to that spirit. For me, the Cascade is coming out really quite nicely in this. It actually reminds me of some of the aroma of some of the Cascadian dark ales, actually. My first impression of the aroma of this beer is that it's almost got a little bit like a kind of medicinally sort of cough syrupy aroma to it. That some of the way these fruity notes are coming out of this beer is quite interesting, but a good bit of lemony sherbet sharpness to it, which is the Centennial, as I mentioned. But yeah, nice little bit of grapefruit in this one from the Cascade as well, and the Citra's giving you some really interesting things too. I mean, you've got a little bit of mango in there. You've also got a little bit of a kind of lychee note out of that as well. Citra's a lovely hop when it's on its own. You know, you get some lovely mango flavours out of it. You can get a hell of a lot of complexity from that Citra hop on its own. You know, lychees, gooseberries. You can also get a bit of a lemony note out of it as well, depending on what malts you have in the base. But yeah, it's really actually quite nice, this one. I like how everything is going together. I mean, the Magnum, from what I remember, is simply usually a bittering hop, but it does have some kind of citrusy elements to it. And on the green side of things, this beer, it has a good bit of floral quality to it, actually. And it's got the floral quality that's coming off this one does have a little bit of that a little bit more of a kind of pungent German noble quality to it. Like the German noble hops are usually kind of subtle in their grassy and floral and earthy qualities, but really it's got a very nice, slightly more pungent noble type aroma to it, which is really cool. The green side of the hops in this are coming out very nicely. On the malty side of things then, you can definitely smell it. It's almost like it has a little bit of a brown bready base, actually. You can smell some of the nice sweet brown sugar in there, which will be the Cara Munich. And the malt base in this one really is quite bready. Munich malts, especially if it's Weirmann malts, which I suspect is what they'll have used in this one if it's Cara Munich. The Vireman malts really have this lovely kind of smoothness to them, and they have a very distinct aroma. If you try the beers in the Bamberg region of Germany, where my friend Daniel lives, of course, the one who got me into doing all of this kind of thing, he, you know, these beers, the Vireman malt has this very distinctive aroma, and I can really pick that out in here. I think it's a very, very smooth, bready kind of quality. This one has a little bit more of a brown bready note to it. There's a little bit of biscuity sweetness, and you also have a little bit of a slightly stronger kind of sweeter, slightly toasted caramel note to this beer as well. So just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before we get in. I think there's a lovely fruitiness and blend of this one. I'm really curious though, in terms of its aroma, again, it's not making me think that it's a New England IPA. It really is making me think it's more along the lines of a West Coast IPA. But yeah, the main point will be whether it's a good beer or not. So let's find that out. This one is the Sickla New England IPA from the Nacka Bryggeri, just outside of Stockholm here in Sweden. A 6.2% New England IPA. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Yeah, okay, so this one for me, is it a New England IPA? I don't think so, I'll say that. Is it a good beer? Yeah, pretty good. That's one of the things about this. I don't understand this, why they've said it's a New England IPA. To me, this is definitely more, if you know, it would definitely fit more the moniker of a West Coast IPA. The New England IPAs are just a lot creamier than this. This is a big, oily IPA. It doesn't have the bitterness that you might expect of a West Coast IPA, right enough, but it has the oily quality. It's got the fruitiness as well, and it does have just that little bit of hoppy bitterness. But in terms of its flavour profile, for me, it's just far more along the lines of a West Coast IPA. So yeah, it's interesting that. I'd be curious to know what their thoughts are behind it, but the main thing is whether it's a good beer or not. You can talk about styles all day, but this one for me, the malt base, the way that the malt base comes out in this one is just far more akin to a West Coast IPA. I would really say that about this. Yeah, so I would also say this is one of these beers that's a little bit more kind of, it's one of these more sort of restaurant-y type beers. I would definitely say that about it as well. It's one of these ones that you want to pair with food. It's not one of these really kind of punchy big boys that you would want to kind of sit and drink on its own, although you can do that. It's a nice sort of sessionable, more food pairing type beer, this one. And I suppose in Sweden you do get the breweries, I think, you know, that produce the beers that are more along the lines of the kind of sessionable, balanced type beers, and then you get the breweries that are very, very punchy in their flavour profiles. I do suspect from the way that this beer is kind of coming across that these guys are more into producing the quite balanced beers. So yeah, that's another point I'll make about this one. I'll need to try another beer or two from them and just see whether that kind of hypothesis holds up. But yeah, let's focus on the actual flavours of the beer then. So, like I was saying with this, the malt base to me is far more akin to a West Coast IPA. In the middle of your palate then you get this nice, smooth, bready quality there, and that blankets the middle of your palate. So sort of like it's almost like a kind of German white bread, if that makes sense, but it has a little bit of an almost bread crusty quality in there as well. I've always said I absolutely love German bread. The Germans are some of the best bakers around that you're going to find, and the flavour of the bready side of the malt base really reminds me of that. If you go into the centre of your palate, you can feel there is a sort of biscuity note to this one. It reminds me quite a bit of McVitie's digestives, but if you go into the very centre of your palate, there is a nice, slightly more oily caramel type flavour to this one. It's almost a little bit toasted. You can really detect a little bit of that sweeter kind of caramel in there too. And yeah, so this is the thing for me that stops this being a New England IPA. It doesn't have the oats or the dextrose or something like that in it just to give it the creaminess. This is a big oily and sweet mouth base, and for me that's what defines the New England IPA. I would take, this is a nice beer, and what I would say to the brewery is take the New England side out of this, just call it the Sickla IPA, because it is far more, you know, it is far more along the lines of you know, a West Coast IPA. The malt base in this one really makes it a West Coast IPA for me. Yes, it's got the lesser IBU, if you like, and the juicier fruits that you'd expect of the New England IPA, but it's a bit more along the line. It certainly is more akin to a West Coast one. This, so I would rename this beer just the Sickla IPA. But the fact is, and the main point is that it's a good beer. That's just one of these kind of marketing things that might sort of put a few question marks for the beer nerds like myself. That's the one thing I would say about this beer. But yeah, I like the way this malt base is. If they can keep this base in this, put the IBUs up a little bit, make this into a West Coast, I think they'd be on to a winner here. Or indeed they could just keep it as it is and rebrand it slightly. But yeah, I like the malt base in this. I think if we're going to have a go at some West Coast IPAs, they have a really kind of solid base for that with this beer actually. The malt base is quite well done, I have to say. So thumbs up to Nacka Bryggeri for that. So yeah, with this beer then, the malt base, as I say, is really nice. It's quite simple, but the way that the flavours blend together is really well done. On the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate, you're getting a nice little touch of earthiness there. That's the Magnum, I think, coming out, but it's quite a subtle earthiness. As you come further forward along the sides of the palate, you can detect those nice floral, aromatic kind of notes to the beer. For me, this one has... yeah, I would say that for me, this beer has just a nice little bit of a slightly spicy note to it, and again, that's something that I know that Magnum can add to the beer. But then as you go round the very front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit more lighter and grassy, I would say. When you go behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy, fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And for me, this one, I think, is very, the fruity qualities in this come about very, very nicely. So you can get a little bit of that grapefruity quality in this one, which again is from the Cascade, and it's quite a juicy grapefruit. It's not too dark and too sour like you can sometimes get from the Chinook hop. The Chinook, of course, blasts you with these big piney resin qualities and a slightly darker grapefruit, but the Cascade is just a nice kind of lighter, juicy grapefruity note. If you come in front of that a little bit, you start to get some of the mango notes from the Citra in there, and that's nice too. There's also a bit of the lemony notes mixing in with the grapefruit as well, and that's the Centennial. But as you go further and further into the aftertaste, it's the complexities from the Citra that are really kind of starting to come out there, which is quite nice. And I like how all that goes together. I'm pretty sure in this one, Magnum will be the bittering hop, and the Cascade, the Citra, and the Centennial are the aroma sort of flavour hops that they've added in here. But yeah, the mangoes come out further forward on the palate, and then as you move just towards the very front tip of your tongue, I think it's more of a kind of lychee note that comes out of this one. There's maybe a little tiny touch of lime in there, which kind of balances out the lemon a little bit. Lemon and lime flavours always go very nicely together. It's a very, it's an age-old blend, that, if you like. But this beer, the way the fruity quality comes across is very nice too. I do like this one. This is actually a very nice kind of sessionable IPA actually. And what I would say is that's my one complaint about this beer is, if you like, when it's supposed to be a New England IPA, when it's marketed as a New England IPA, you do expect it to be a big sort of hazy thing. And I've said this, there's a lot of breweries brewing the New England IPAs now. And I do miss the old West Coast ones, the more sweeter malt bases and the bigger hoppy bitterness, if you like. This one it definitely has a West Coast malt base for me. I don't think there's much doubt about that. It has a lovely juicy fruitiness that you can get from either side of the IPA coin. Yeah, it's this one for me. I think this is, if they take the IBUs of this beer up a little bit and marketed it as a West Coast IPA, I think they're on to a real winner here. They found a really good base, malt base for a West Coast IPA. So maybe that's something they can think about. The only thing that kind of irks me a little bit about this beer is that it is marketed as a New England IPA. Either change it to Sickla IPA or change the recipe a little bit, put more bittering hops in there, stick a bit more Magnum in early on in the boil, and stick the IBUs up and make it a West Coast IPA. But have they produced a good beer, which is the main question? Yes, that's the main. They have produced a nice sessionable IPA, this one, but it's just not quite what you would expect from what it says on the bottle. But this is definitely one of these beers that is it's more a sort of food pairing beer, this one, rather than being a really kind of punchy, heavyweight sort of New England IPA or West Coast IPA. This is definitely one of these ones that's meant to be enjoyed with food and things like that. It's a sort of restaurant-y type beer, as I always call it. So well balanced beer, this one. And I think that's the sort of area that these guys in the Nacka Bryggeri are trying to go for, actually. But it's a nice beer, and that is the main question. Like I say, it's not a New England IPA in the traditional sense. It does have the lower IBUs and the fruitiness that you'd expect, but the malt base is more like a West Coast IPA. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say mid-bodied beer, this one. Carbonation's very smooth. It's a big oily mouthfeel to this one, and again, that's a characteristic of the West Coast IPA. Nice little bit of hoppy bitterness. I think you're looking at around sort of 25-30 IBUs, if that. Nice little touch of nice balance with sweetness. The smoothness and the sweetness in the malt base really kind of go together quite well, and of course you've got these lovely pardon me, juicy, fruity qualities to this beer as well. So overall, like I said, a really nice, well-balanced beer, just not a New England IPA, far more akin to a West Coast IPA in my opinion. The main point though is that they have produced a nice kind of drinkable beer with this. So yeah, if you get the chance to try this one, have a go at it for yourself. If you have tried it already, let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. I'd like to try another beer or two from these guys and just see what they're like, but I really think the base that they have here would be very good and very well used in a West Coast IPA, but this one isn't a New England IPA in the traditional sense of the style, if you like. But yeah, thumbs up to the guys at Nacka Bryggeri here for producing a nice beer, and I do hope to try a couple more from these guys in the near future. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Nacka Bryggeri as well, and I'm sure I'll return to these guys at some point in the future. They did have a different variety of styles there, so I'll see if I can have a go at some of the other ones. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Sickla New England IPA from the Nacka Bryggeri, just outside of Stockholm here in Sweden. Until the next time, Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Slanja, skål.